20 years passed in silence and shadow, years that reshaped Sicily. The world above changed slowly, while something evil operated below. Ravanos and Isabella still ruled from their cliffside castle. Fear moved quietly from servant to servant within the stone halls and candlelit rooms. Servants tended to their needs, guards stood watch through the daylight hours. Loyalty was enforced through intimidation and fear. Others handled the bloodier work, men willing to threaten, steal, and kill in exchange for protection. The vampires no longer dirtied their own hands unless they wished to. And yet, power decays when it has nothing left to conquer. Sicily became predictable, familiar, boring, too small for Ravanos' hunger. Across the ocean lay a place that touched his imagination. America, a land of motion and noise, where cities grew faster than rumors, where monsters could vanish into crowds and thrive. Isabella would follow him as she always had, even though she would have preferred to stay in the comfort of what they had created on the island. The journey and the new land felt dangerous to her. Far from their estates, Marco lived a quieter life. His caretakers had carried him across the island years ago, when he was still a boy, putting distance, land, and silence between him and the vampires. He worked, he endured, and he learned how to stay unnoticed. Survival, he believed, came from remembering the past and maintaining his guard. Memory is a patient hunter. At night, Marco still saw them. Pale faces, burning eyes, the cost of hesitation. He told himself the monsters were still out there somewhere. So when Marco boarded a steamship, it felt like escape, a chance to leave old ghosts behind forever. He did not know he was stepping into their jaws. Fate, it seemed, had booked his passage long before he had. The ship was immense, iron and steam stitched together into a floating city. Once at sea, there was nowhere to run, only forward. By day, Ravanos and Isabella slept beneath the decks, heavy doors, armed guards. At night, the ship changed. Shadows stretched longer. Corridors grew quieter. Ravanos walked the decks like a king inspecting new territory, calm, unhurried, already imagining what awaited him on shore. Isabella wandered more cautiously. She felt watched, not hunted, but watched. The first body was explained away. Illness, they said. The sea is hard on weak hearts. The second was less convincing. Bloodless, pale. A silence clung to the body that words could not fill. Whispers spread fast. The crew avoided certain corridors. Passengers locked their doors at night. Marco saw the pattern immediately. The timing, the marks. He had seen this before, long ago. It was during a late shift that Marco met Elias, a shipworker, quiet, sharp-eyed, the kind of man who knows things others ignored. Marco did not tell Elias everything at once, only enough to test him. Stories of monsters, of Sicily, victims drained of blood. Elias listened and did not laugh. After that, Elias watched the ship differently. The shadows, the locked doors, the passengers who never appeared during the day. One night, Isabella stopped mid-ship. The air carried something familiar. Who was out there, she thought. Marco watched her from the darkness. She pinned him to the wall with fear, but he knew he must act. The moment felt impossibly fragile. One chance, no witnesses. Isabella leaned against the railing, staring out into the sea. She never heard Marco approach. There was no speech, no warning, only the sudden shove and the open air. The ocean swallowed her whole. Cold rushed in, her dress dragged her down. The sea did not care, the darkness closed above her head. Marco was anxious. Was she really dead, or would she somehow survive? Ravanos felt it immediately, a tearing absence where something vital had been. His gorgeous Isabella. Was she really no more? Grief would come later, but first, rage. He found Marco quickly. Why had he not noticed him before? Nevertheless, nothing would hide from him now. What followed was savage and out of control. The walls of the corridor were soaked in Marco's blood. Even Ravanos' own men turned away in horror and fear. Elias found Marco later, broken, silent, proof that his new friend's stories had been true. What was this devil, this demon? From that night on, Elias kept his distance. He watched the vampire carefully and began to think about how this monster might be stopped. The ship passed on. All the passengers lived in fear. Too much death. There must be some curse, they thought. Was this another Jack the Ripper? Another plague? The ship could not make shore soon enough. But no one expected the charming gentleman whose glamorous wife had fallen to her death. The captain invited Ravanos to his table. Elias watched on in horror, too scared to confront him. When they reached America, Elias stepped onto land with a new purpose. He knew he must proceed with caution, but he would not forget what he had seen. Elias tried to disappear into the vast city. He needed to learn who this Ravanos actually was, and he wanted to figure out how to stop him. He knew he would have to work outside the law. Ravanos was too well connected, but whatever it took, he knew he must stop this evil being. Ravanos was furious, heartbroken. Even with his men around him, he felt utterly alone. Now he stood impossibly high above the city. Steel and stone stretched endlessly before him. The city the vampire meant to rule felt empty. He wanted to tear apart all these puny mortal human beings. The night stretched out long before him, far from over.